Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry to the House, I came a little late. I and the distinguished Senator for Uasin Gishu evolved this idea, and I should have been here to second the motion, but I'm told it was very ably seconded by the majority leader. Mr. Speaker, we had gone with, among others, the Senator for Nyamira to condole the family of the late Henry Obocha, who was a colleague in the 7th, 8th, and 9th parliaments. Mr. Speaker, this motion, as has been said by colleagues, is very important for this country. Mr. Speaker, this country is now so dependent on maize as the primary food supplement that when there is no availability of maize in the country, literally every homestead feels there is lack of food, even when there are some alternatives like rice, chapatis, and others. And Mr. Speaker, we brought this motion, and as has been mentioned by Senator Ongeri, ideally the motion would have brought everybody on board. Because whether we're talking of the not very well watered parts of Ukambani, Mr. Speaker, records show that when there is good rainfall, Ukambani produces 5.6 million bags of maize a year, which is very substantial, and many other parts. But we're talking of the brain basket of the country. A county like Trans Nzoia alone, where the distinguished senator for Nairobi comes from, Mr. Speaker, produces 1/3 of the maize cereal of this country. Uasin Gishu, Bungoma, Kakamega, Kisii, Nyamira, Narok, you can count on end, Mr. Speaker. In fact, yesterday, Mr. Speaker, Senator Seneta, and I'm happy that she has been included in this committee, came to me and said, and I was talking to Professor Kamar, why have you put members in this committee from the Western region and left Kajiado, where we don't grow maize, but we intend to grow maize. And we want to participate in making the field even before we start. Mr. Speaker, the farmer in this country is the most ignored and ill-treated person that anybody can talk of. Today, Mr. Speaker, if you go to Kitale, I don't know if my nephew, the senator for Nairobi, has been to Kitale of late, there is a chain of lorries smuggling in maize from Uganda. Chains and chains of trucks delivering maize from Uganda without any procedure. This maize, Mr. Speaker, is finding its way into the galleries of the cereals board. The farmers of last year, and this afternoon I was talking to Kipkorir Arap Menjo, one of the most celebrated activists in support of the maize farmer in the Rift Valley. He was telling me, Mr. Speaker, there are still many, many farmers holding close to 1 million bags of maize of last year's harvest in their granaries because they can't deliver it anywhere. The maize of this year has already tasseled and is getting ready. Everywhere you pass, you hear of Machome and Masambe. Mr. Speaker, it will be ready for harvest in the next 2 months. The farmer again will now have to empty their stores to put in new maize. And to empty these stores, Mr. Speaker, they'll either throw away the maize or deliver to the middlemen that Mutula Kilonzo Jr. has been talking about at a throwaway price. Mr. Speaker, in the old days, and I was talking to Professor Kamara and asking her, where did we go wrong? We had public institutions in this country that protected and helped the farmer from the end of the chain from the beginning of the chain to the end of the chain. We had KFA, Mr. Speaker, which was later turned into something called KGGCU and then killed because people wanted to take over its properties. Mr. Speaker, we had AFC, nobody hears about it anymore. We had Cereals Board that is completely mismanaged today. And Mr. Speaker, we had KNTC that supplied farmers with hardware implements. And the farmer went through these institutions to get credit for inputs, for plowing, for everything, and eventually have his money paid by Cereals Board around the chain and the balance given to him to go home. Today, Mr. Speaker, the farmer lives in a nightmare situation. When you have a bumper harvest, you have nowhere to sell the crop. This country, Mr. Speaker, is a signatory to the Maputo Protocol that requires that every African country puts 10% of its budget as a bare minimum in agriculture for food security. My inquiry tells me, Mr. Speaker, that this year, the budget component for agriculture is 2.9%. A violation of a protocol that we have signed when our own constitution says every international instrument and treaty we sign becomes part of our domestic law. So we are obligated to honor it. Then, Mr. Speaker, you have the AFC that extends credit to farmers. Farmers are being auctioned with their produce stuck in their granaries because they can't sell it anywhere. And Mr. Speaker, all this has brought untold harm to farmers. I tabled here, Mr. Speaker, a report from the Minister for Agriculture, Mwangi Kinjuri, where he was talking of farmers in Bungoma, where you and I come from, Mr. Speaker, growing maize on 800 acres of land. You and I know, Mr. Speaker, that in Bungoma, the largest land holding you can get to grow maize cannot be 100 acres. In fact, anybody with 100 acres of maize farm in Bungoma is celebrated. Then, Mr. Speaker, the big question that this committee will look at, the big question. Cereals Board, Mr. Speaker, is the agency through which the government gives fertilizer subsidy. So they are obligated to know if you have given fertilizer to the distinguished senator for West Pokot to go and plant maize on 100 acres, he cannot turn around and deliver maize grown on 800 acres without being asked questions. Mr. Speaker, Cereals Board has slept on its job. Cereals Board is not working. In Bungoma, Mr. Speaker, I've seen Cereals Board, part of their galleries are now garages. People are repairing cars in Cereals Board's galleries when farmers can't deliver maize anywhere. And Mr. Speaker, in perspective, I did read, there was a president in America called Ronald Reagan, who once was addressing some American caucus, and he said he's very excited because he has learned that third world countries are going to suffer severe food shortage. It excites an American president because third world countries, including Kenya, were going to suffer severe food shortage. And then he added, it means we are going to feed them, and once we feed them, we'll do anything with them. You can imagine that kind of arrogance, Mr. Speaker, from our friends. And true, whoever feeds you controls you. If you have no food in the home, even as a man, as a head of family, you even feel afraid of going home. And Mr. Speaker, we want this Senate because, Mr. Speaker, this motion, I have no doubt, is going to go through. And the facts will come out in the inquiry we are going to carry out. This House, Mr. Speaker, enjoys phenomenal confidence from the public. Kenyans believe in this Senate. Kenyans believe that this Senate can crack and solve problems that we have. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we felt with the professor that if we bring this matter to this House, and I want to encourage members, 9 members put in the committee are only in observance of the standing orders. Any of our colleagues here, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, when we are visiting counties to find out what is going on, any member can ask your office to allow them to be part of the team that will visit the countryside. We want to know why a farmer in Kisii suffers even more when he has a bamba harvest. Why a farmer in Uasin Gishu has to walk to the streets of Eldoret and make violent statements to gather the attention of the state to protect him as a farmer who feeds the country. You go to Netherlands, Mr. Speaker, and Scandinavian countries, the farmer is the most respected and the most bambered person in society, because they toil and moil from morning to evening to feed the rest. The white-collar guys who sit in offices, smoking away the whole afternoon, Mr. Speaker, sipping coffee the whole afternoon, must rely on that farmer in gumboots and overalls for their comfort. And we want to restore the position of dignity, Mr. Speaker, and respect and confidence for the farmer in this country, so that anybody who wants to farm, and that's why, Mr. Speaker, you see, sons and daughters of big farmers in Rift Valley and other parts of the country, the big farms are still found in the Rift Valley. In the old days, Mr. Speaker, we used to have colleagues. You finish university and he tells you, you guys stay in Nairobi, me, I'm going home to help my father manage the farm. Today, Mr. Speaker, nobody thinks that direction. You ask young men living in university, said, I'm going to hustle. They don't even know that hustle means stealing, Mr. Speaker. That they're going to hustle, they're going to do whatever. The farms are out there. The aging parents are unable to run the farms because there is nothing to attract their children to remain on the farms and feed this nation. Mr. Speaker, we want this Senate to stand in unison, to stand in patriotism and help the farmer in this country. And I want to encourage, Mr. Speaker, that maize is being dealt with in this motion. We have the dengue problem in Eastern. We have the coffee problem, which Honorable Ndwiga has been following. We have the pyrethrum problem in Rift Valley. The crop is dead. And many others. I want us as a Senate, Mr. Speaker, to put wealth in the hands of the people we represent in the counties. The other day, I was thoroughly impressed, Mr. Speaker, when I met the distinguished governor for West Pokot. He told me he has bought Saiwal bulls that he is going to put in every single home in West Pokot to improve the breed of cattle so that Pokots in another 4 or 5 years will be the biggest suppliers of beef cattle to the market in the country. We want that kind of positive thinking. The same governor, Mr. Speaker, told me he's now embarked on growing at least 1 million seedlings of coffee every 2 years to turn West Pokot into a major coffee growing and coffee producing area. I want to encourage our governors to think in that direction. I've advised our governor in Bungoma to do the same, that he must revive coffee, he must revive cotton, he must revive maize, because we see how things are going. Agriculture is a 100% devolved function. That is why the theater for discussion of this matter lies on this floor. Mr. Speaker, whether your area is growing maize or not, you'll find that your people eat maize. Maize from Trans Nzoia is eaten in Kajiado, in Narok, in everywhere. And Senator, welcome. You have been happily included in this ad hoc committee. And I hope you will put in the best of your industry to help this committee make things work. Mr. Speaker, so that other members can speak, I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, your office to support this committee, to go to the theater where things are happening, to visit Kisii, to visit Uasin Gishu, to visit Trans Nzoia, to visit Bungoma, to visit Kakamega, to visit Eastern, Makueni, Machakos, Kitui, and all areas where maize is grown, and see and come to face to face with the plight of farmers. Mr. Speaker, farmers out there, that some of them are not committing suicide, we salute them because they suffer. They suffer immensely. Imagine, Madam Speaker, you go and borrow money, pledge your land as security to go and produce food to feed Kenyans. When you finish production, nobody buys your food. Why? Because cartels and middlemen and crooks are going to Uganda, bringing cheap maize. They don't pay duty. Madam Speaker, can you add me 3 minutes? They go and bring maize from Uganda. They evade duty with corrupt officials of cereals board. They deliver this maize. When cereals boards, Madam Speaker, were constructed, they were not constructed to give relief to a Tanzanian maize farmer or a Ugandan maize farmer. They were constructed to give relief and storage for produce by the Kenyan maize farmer. Why are we now bolstering the economies of our neighbors and killing our own economy? Mr. Speaker, these are issues we must address. This committee, Madam Speaker, must address the issue of farm subsidies. How much money is in budget? How much fertilizer is purchased? How is this fertilizer distributed to reach the ordinary farmer? After that, Mr. Speaker, how does the state intervene to help the farmer fight like the armyworms we have been having? Then how does the state help the farmer harvest the crop? How does the state help the farmer limit and reduce post-harvest losses that farmers suffer? And above all, Madam Speaker, how does the state help the farmer deliver the produce and be paid on time so that they can also enjoy the fruits of their sweat? There are farmers out there who delivered maize to cereals board, and the majority leader told us here that he delivered maize last year. He has not been paid. Some of us have even stopped growing maize, Madam Speaker, because you grow maize is a highway to bankruptcy. And who wants to consciously or knowingly bankrupt themselves? Nobody. So, Madam Speaker, the facts, everything will come out in the work of the committee, and I want to commit myself and yourself as the co-sponsors of this motion, that this motion is going to help every single farmer who grows maize, and will also help the majority, if not all Kenyans, who consume maize meal as their daily livelihood. Madam Speaker, I beg to support this motion, and I hope that it will get an acknowledgement and support and an applause from the whole House, because this is what we were brought here to do, to protect the ordinary, helpless person who is under threat from cartels, from fraudsters, from criminals, and from faceless profiteers who walk around with briefcases, deliver nothing, and earn so much, and at the expense of the farmer who delivers so much and earn nothing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.